and welcome back to the Support the Spectrum channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 9th video I ever made online. This video was depicting the presentation I gave to the general population in the school I used to work at. The presentation was specifically on autism and accepting autism and teaching the different ways that neurodivergent people can communicate, because it's not always verbal language. There are so many types of visual language or nonverbal language behaviors that our neurodivergent friends express with. So it was an awesome opportunity to get to present to the general population about those differences. So if you're familiar with this channel, you may know that I worked in a public Delaware school as an autism support speech language pathologist. And when I first started, I was the only autism support speech language pathologist. But then about halfway through the year, I had a saving grace in the form of Ryann Hurley, who was my coworker at the time and is still a friend of mine. And she and I tackled the entire autistic caseload of this public school, and it was so awesome to have her help and so awesome to have her friendship. She is an amazing speech therapist, and her socials will be tagged below if you're interested in following her. She helped me create, and we really created together, this PowerPoint, this Autism Acceptance and Awareness PowerPoint that is available for free on my website, support-the-spectrum.com, under support materials. It is a free resource for educators, caregivers, anyone who wants to teach anyone else about autism and the different ways that autistic people communicate, as well as the different ways that they process information. It's a PowerPoint presentation that does cater to a younger audience in that elementary school age, but of course anybody can gain something from it. And it also includes an activity. So we'll get into that soon. Today we're going to be talking about that presentation, the content of the presentation, and how exactly I presented it, and hopefully that will help you when you want to present it as well. So the first part of the PowerPoint details what we can do as a population to connect with neurodivergent people, how they might think of things and how we can connect to that, and how connection might look a little different, but it is equally as rewarding, and to remind these learners to stay curious. It is human nature to see differences, especially when you're younger, and think, oh, that's weird, I'm gonna stay away from it, or that's different than how what I would do that, and I see other people noticing that too, so I'm gonna stay away from it. And the first part of the PowerPoint was specifically centering on, hey, maybe don't do that. Maybe try to meet that person where they are, understand that person, and connect with them the way they want to connect. I would bring up specific examples that I would see on the recess fields. I had many students, many of my autistic students, who really enjoyed the big proprioceptive sensory experiences of spinning on the carousel or swinging or going down the slides. And those are things that you can share and play with someone. Maybe they weren't interested in playing tag or football or stuff like that, but you don't have to make those people feel excluded. Maybe they will want to play football with you if you change it a certain way and just make it a catch-throw situation, or aim it at a certain object and throw, like a fence, not a person. So I was specific with little details and how to switch very common play activities so as to include those autistic peers. And I also detailed how certain social communication might be different. So maybe that autistic individual won't say hello or goodbye to you. They won't ask you how you are. Perhaps some of them obviously do, but in the case of where I was at my school, mostly non-speaking, and when they're playing on the playground, they don't always have their device with them. So it was a lot of nonverbal communication. And I would explain to this general population that even though the communication is not coming out of their mouth, if you notice their body language, you can tell a lot about what they're trying trying to communicate, especially if they're smiling and having a good time with you. So then the next part of the presentation kind of bleeds into that. It's about how communication can look different for autistic people. And we spoke specifically about how using visual icons, visual symbols can be used to communicate so much. So there is an entire 2 slides, I believe, that just has pictures of emojis on them. And I would go around and ask people, what do you think this emoji means? What does this emoji mean? What does this string of emojis mean to you? And of course they had answers for that, right? So it proved to the point that we don't always need verbal communication to communicate. Sometimes you might see sign language, sometimes you might see speech generating devices or communication books, or sometimes you can simply read body language. Throughout the presentation, there are moments for definitions of why certain things could be different for autistic people, specifically when referring to sensory processing and sensory input. Those are complex topics that we would kind of break down to just let the others understand that perhaps a hug is too intense for an autistic person, but waving is always appropriate. Or things like dysregulation. Dysregulation is a big word, but of course I can relate to those students by saying we all get dysregulated. Sometimes when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling scared, when we're feeling so happy that we can't sit in our seats and we can't focus, we are dysregulated. We're having such big feelings that our body is sometimes not listening to our brain or the other way around. And I gave them real examples that I think they might have seen before, like the recess example. There I had one student just recently, right after I gave this presentation, who became really dysregulated on the playground and was vocalizing. And of course that sounds loud and it sounds very alarming to anybody, but especially children. They were obviously concerned that that student was okay. I used that example to express this person was feeling dysregulated and they didn't have the words to say how they felt in that moment, which happens to all of us, but they used their big voice to express themselves, and what that person really needed was someone to go up to them and help them feel better. Have we all felt that way before? And of course, everyone says yes, because that's a universal experience. And then finally, at the end of the PowerPoint, there is an interactive activity. So this should be said before you decide to download this PowerPoint and use it. There is an activity you will need materials for. Of course, you don't have to do the activity that we put on there. You could edit it to be any type of craft or pretty much anything. But we decided to make the activity some glitter visual stimulation bottles. So we had empty plastic bottles. We filled them up with water, glitter, and color and food coloring. And they are used as, visual stimulation items. Very fun for young kids, for any age group really, especially if your neurodivergent person loves visual stimulation. So we did that activity, and at the same time as doing that activity, we had them formulate a communication board of their own. So sorry, I think I misspoke. Not while we were doing the activity did they create their communication board. Before the activity, while we were explaining what we were doing, we had the students create their own communication boards, and they would use real life colors, real life pictures, of course, put words in there and phrases that they knew they would have to say during the activity. And we challenged the students not to use verbal language at all, to hopefully teach them to relate to someone who can't, right? So we asked all the students to be as quiet as they could. It wasn't necessary. Silence wasn't necessary, but as quiet as they could. If they needed help, they raised their hand, and they used their communication boards to request water, request glitter, request what color they wanted, talk to a friend and say, that looks awesome, that looks cool, help me, or all done. And they did an amazing job with this. We did give them some guidance on some certain phrases and words that would be helpful for them during the activity prior to, but the communication boards were better than I ever expected, honestly. A lot of them were quick to add different expressions of emotions and feelings and adding those pictures, almost like the emojis we were talking about in the beginning, to it. And that was a really, really cool thing to see, that they were understanding that you didn't need verbal language to express so many things, and that pictures can do a lot for us. So like I said, you can do any art activity or any interactive activity, but hopefully you will just press the points to have them be as quiet as possible, create those communication boards, use those communication boards, and understand their non-speaking friends a little bit better. And then at the very, very end, we reflected on the experience. We talked about what was hard, what was easy, what they considered to be fun, what they considered to be challenging. This is always a good practice when you're teaching the youths. It makes them think back and reflect, and hopefully it sticks in the brain better if they are asked to do that task. But overall, it was just an amazing experience. It was one of those days working at the school that just felt like, I hope I'm making a difference, and I think that we're making a difference, and felt really, really nice. So thank you to Leanne Hurley for helping me make this PowerPoint. Again, it is available for free on my website under the support materials tabs, support-the-spectrum.com. Please check it out. If you ever have questions and want to contact me, if there's ever a topic that you want me to make this long form video about, please contact me again from my website under the Contact Me tab. And lastly, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch these videos and spend a good amount of time with me. It's always appreciated. If you are interested in learning more about neurodiversity affirming practices and the science behind them, you can subscribe here at Support the Spectrum. I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can find me anywhere. And if you would like to schedule a consultation with me, that is also something that you can contact me about through my website. And yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. I'll see you next time.